Welcome to Valencia, the last expansion of our 2017 classic client, but far from the end of this adventure. In the last video, I experienced much of what Medalla has to offer in my hunt for accessories. I got full plus 15 Grunel gear and a set of iconic Pry accessories from 2016 and 2017. And I even managed to get the legendary Beg's gloves from my third ever Beg scroll. On the first day venturing into Valencia, I was excited for all of the new grind zones, new accessories, and increased Blackstone drop rates. Valencia added many yellow grade accessories to the game, including the Tungrad earring, Tungrad necklace, Basilisk belt, Kadri ring, Serap's necklace, Centaur belt, Crescent ring, and Sissel's necklace. One of the great things about this expansion was that you could grind just about anywhere without feeling like you were wasting your time. This feeling even continued into the Camisylvia and Dregan expansions. During the entire time, nearly every Valencia spot was worthwhile. History and Achman, great money for Tungrads. Naga and Fogans, great XP and scrolls. Bandits, great XP. Basilisks, not very fun in my opinion, but at least you got some Bassi belts. Crescents for Crescent rings, Centaurs for Centaur belts, and so on. We'll just ignore Bashims. I bet if you were asked to draw a map of Valencia by memory, you would have forgotten that section of the map even exists. Going into Valencia, I was dreaming about the easy energy from talking to all the new NPCs, the loads of contribution from doing the Valencia questline, the easy experience from Nagas and Fogans, and most importantly, the rain of Blackstones and Serap's necklaces as I started my first grind of the expansion at the Desert Nagas just outside of Sandgrain Bazaar. Well, as it turns out, the energy isn't quite as free as I was made to believe it was. An entire 4-hour stream later and my energy went up by 1. Yep, 1. The contribution also won't be coming in any easier because doing the Valencia questline was just a daydream. I'm not suffering through all of that. Well, at least the Nagas will give me a good amount of Blackstones, XP, and Serap's necklaces. Except, where is everyone? I never realized this because during much of my journey back in 2017, I was still living in Medalla, but early Nagas did not have near as much density as it does today. I ventured deeper into the grind zone, and the story remained the same. Not only were there far less of them, but they were also way harder to kill. They're not dangerous or anything, but I can come here with 100 AP today and wipe the floor with these mobs. But in 2017, even 132 AP isn't very effective. So, with Nagas not being everything I had remembered, I decided I'd get a camel from Sandgrain and go pay my other main grind spot of the time of visit, Desert Fogans. As a small reminder in case you have forgotten, Fogans was not a very popular spot until it got buffed sometime in late 2017 to early 2018. I believe this buff primarily increased the scroll drop rate, but also gave a minor increase to experience and potentially even Blackstone drops. With this server being pre-Naga buff, I'm almost certain that it also predates the Fogans buff. Before heading out, I figured I should store some things in the Sandgrain storage, except he wasn't there. Both I and my Twitch chat remembered that there was once a time when Sandgrain simply didn't have a storage. But apparently that was a Mandela effect. As the storage keeper does exist, he's just up the hill where you would never expect him to be. So, heading out to Fogans, I decided to really commit to this place. The clear speeds were slow, but I should get good scroll rates, okay Blackstone rates, Serap's necklaces, and good experience. It turns out though that the XP from Fogans is not great. Helms die way faster and give double the experience. Not only that, but I got about 3 Blackstones an hour and 1 Serap's necklace in a total of 6 hours grinding. I'll definitely be coming back here again, but unfortunately I think I'm better off in Medalla for a little while longer. I need to get tri-weapons and armor, and I can't get that without melting Medalla accessories for hards and sharps. In the downtime between my Valencia stream and begrudgingly going back to Helms, I decided I should set up my farm. I'll need this for cooking ingredients, but more importantly, it will provide me with a source for weeds so that I can go and do some alchemy. As the crops wilt, I can prune them and get weeds, which I will turn into pure powder reagent and clear liquid reagent, which are required for almost all alchemy recipes. I figured I'd set up my farm in Sandgrain for a few reasons. Number 1, because I'll probably be in this location a lot through the rest of the journey, and number 2, so that my crops are in a poor growing environment and they will wilt more often and need more pruning. I should have done my research though, because this hot and dry location that I chose right outside of Sandgrain is basically the perfect location for my onions and peppers. It turns out that these crops hate water and don't mind the heat, so yeah, not very smart on my part. This is where the second issue arose with my plan. I left the crops alone to wilt while I was doing other activities. One crop wilted and I was excited to see my plan working out. Except a few minutes later, it was magically cured. It turns out that the server is buggy, and after a certain amount of time, the plants will magically fight off any weeds and bugs bothering them. I decided I should put a worker on the farm so that he could produce weeds as a byproduct for me, but still no weeds made an appearance in my storage. This could be bad RNG, but I believe that farming as a whole is just very buggy. After my next stream, I decided to sit at the farm and watch some Twitch so that I could prune a crop anytime it needed it. About 3 hours of sitting and pruning later, and I had a whopping 25 weeds. With this being the case, I can technically still complete all of my challenges, but it is going to take a long time. I plan to create a system to get weeds despite the game trying to stop me, but I want to make sure that it's fair. My current idea is that I will convert farming byproduct into weeds at a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I have 20 farming byproduct, I can destroy this 20 product and replace it with 20 weeds. This will still be ridiculously slow, but it will at least give me a source that doesn't involve standing at the farm for hundreds of hours. If you disagree with this rule or think of a better system, please let me know in the comments and I will adjust accordingly. After the next batch of crops grew, I also decided to move my farm to Glish, where I could flood the crops to produce even more weeds if I do stick to actively pruning. Unfortunately though, they don't seem to have any more issue with growing in a swamp than in the desert, so I think this whole system is bugged. I give up. Since I'm already suffering, I'll let you in on my new struggles with enhancing. So after my time at Fogan's, I started to do some enhancing, and my reblath gear that I've been crafting slowly is now almost all at plus 15. I decided it was time to make a negative karma alt to downgrade this armor to plus 14. If you didn't know, the church system for downgrading plus 15 weapons and armor didn't exist until sometime in 2018. I made a negative karma Valkyrie because my weapons are a sword and shield, and then I found some horses to kill in order to get negative karma. It turns out horses don't like being killed. They just run away, and if you don't have high enough AP, there's nothing you can do about it. This is where I had to get a bit creative, and potentially a little bit cheaty. I just couldn't kill a horse no matter how hard I tried. They'd run away, then after I chased them for a while, they'd reset their health and I'd be right back where I started. This is when I had a genius idea. What if another player held the horse in place with a lasso while I killed it? Obviously, there are no other players on this server, but I do have an admin account, so I ran my admin account over to the horse location and threw the lasso onto the horse. I can't play 2 games at the same time, so the horse would eventually break free, but maybe it would give me enough time to kill the horse. It turns out that the horse is invulnerable while it's being lassoed by another player. Well done, Perlibus. Your grief prevention works. But in this moment, I'm not very happy about it. After trying and trying, I finally gave up and made a ranger, to which I had to make another weapon and enhance it to plus 12. And then I finally managed to kill enough horses that the guards would attack me in town. Except nothing can ever be easy, and the gear downgrading doesn't work on this server. No matter how long I sat there dying to guards, the reblath stayed at plus 15. I asked my Twitch chat how we felt about destroying the plus 15 gear and spawning in plus 14 gear in its place, and they said no. So I will have to make new reblath gear every time it goes to plus 15. Thanks a lot, guys. As a very small positive, I realized that I can turn my plus 15 reblath back into 15 armor stones, so it's not a complete waste. This is still going to be far, far more expensive than it would have been back in the day, but at least I won't have an inventory full of useless gear. Moving away from the bad side of gearing, my silver finally reached the 100 million mark, meaning that I could actually purchase a boss piece if it rolls from the night vendor. As luck would have it, on the second night of having the silver, I actually rolled a red nose armor. I would have preferred the dim tree armor or literally any boss weapon, but I also won't complain about getting a new boss piece 2 episodes in a row. Prior to this, I had actually given up on rolling the night vendor because I realized that I didn't want to waste my money on blackstones or sharps. I had rolled a Kazarka staff and a dandelion at Sphero while I was too poor to buy them, so I decided I'd just stop rolling until I had over 100 million silver because I was just torturing myself. After 3 days in a row of basically just farming helms, running scroll bosses, and gathering, my live streams are very interesting, I promise, I had quite the stash of hards and still basically no sharps. Nonetheless, I did quite a bit of gear tapping. At this point I was starting to get impatient, which is the largest enemy to progression in BDO. I started tapping gear on lower and lower stacks because reblath just wasn't consistent enough to build stacks on. I was getting to the point that I couldn't even get a plus 10 stack on reblath in less than 100 stones. I get about 30 armor stones an hour, by the way. So I just started throwing my boss gear in and building stacks on it. In a way, this actually worked pretty well. Extremely expensive stacks, but my red nose has been quite stubborn and has been giving me a ton of pry stacks. By this point I was getting kind of tired of grinding helms constantly, so I decided to take a break and explore outside the bounds of the world on my admin account. It looks like Ulukita was pretty much finished by this point. It needed a higher poly castle and a few other buildings adjusted, but it was pretty much complete otherwise. I assume this was originally meant to be Medaya Part 2, but eventually got scrapped in favor of the Margoria expansion, but that's just a theory. But just to make a point, in case you ever wondered how much effort Perlibis put into the terraining for the Ulukita expansion, they basically got it for free thanks to the earlier devs. Exploration was a bit of a pain because I could only move by teleporting to specific locations, which use very high values, so I didn't explore a whole lot. While exploring south of Bashams in Valencia though, I did discover this little town. I assume this was a bunch of assets that got copied and pasted into other locations for actual use, but there's also a chance that this was an early blockout of a town. I kinda doubt it though. After that, I decided to teleport to Camasilvia because my map actually showed the entire zone. I think this version of the game has an updated world map, but still lacks the terrain data for the updated Camasilvia. This is what Camasilvia looked like before it was finished. Clearly just placeholder terrain. Outside of that, I didn't see much interesting out here. North of Port Rat may be worth investigating at some point, but that won't be today. Getting back to the grind, I did obviously some more Helms grinding. Unfortunately, nowhere else can get me as many hards and sharps at the same time, while also providing Grunel gear and a fairly consistent book drop rate. I did get tired of Helms though and go to Sazens because Helms doesn't drop Grunel gloves. I forgot how good the silver per hour is at Sazens. Every other location has been making me about 2 million silver an hour, while Sazens makes me an easy 5 million an hour. Unfortunately, it lacks in pretty much all other respects. It may be good for farming silver for the Night Vendor though. At this point I'm getting very tired of stacking on Reblath just to have it go to plus 15 before I get a single usable stack. So I've started just tossing my many hards at my Pry Grunel gear. Surprisingly, it works pretty well. I stack on Reblath to somewhere between 8 and 10 fail stacks depending on how confident I am, then I tap on Grunel or even Red Nose. I managed to get myself duo Red Nose armor, as well as a duo Grunel helm and boots. While having this extra DP would be extremely useful for the Valencia scroll bosses that hit like an absolute truck, when I see 3 duo armor pieces, what I see is 3 try attempts. Fortunately, my warrior had a try stack ready to go, and I threw the boots in to start. The boots failed, but that's kind of to be expected. I just really want the Red Nose to go try if anything. The helm goes in and easy try upgrade. Even though my boots downgraded, my DP still went up by getting the try helmet instead. Seeing try on gear feels so amazing in this version of the game. I'm sure it's a similar feeling for getting deck in modern BDO, but when you get try and especially Tet in 2017, you just have to open your inventory every once in a while and look at it. Seeing those 3 vertical lines over your armor is just so pleasing to look at. You look at it and you know that you have a truly useful piece of armor. Pry and Duo are just temporary pieces, but a Try is a more permanent part of your account. Try doesn't come very easy, and unless you're going for Tet, that armor slot is just done. Now of course for me, I'm going for at least Try boss armor, so Try Grunel is really just a stepping stone, but a major one at that. Now unless somebody forces me to do a gear roulette using Twitch channel points, I will be done with my Grunel gear as soon as it all hits Try. After my successful enhancing session, I decided to go back to Sazens because I was both getting very tired of Helms, but also because I made a bit of a realization. So here's my math. I get an Ancient Guardian Seal, which melts for 1 to 2 sharps about once every 4 hours at Helms. I also get about 4 Scarla necklaces an hour, which converts into 1 hard per Scarla, but we'll ignore that for now. Looking specifically at sharps, because that's what I'm short on, let's be generous and say that I get a sharp, worth 3.6 million silver from the Night Vendor, every 2 hours. Meanwhile, at Sazens, I can manage to farm 5 to 6 million silver an hour. Once I get enough ults to level 50 for a lot of Night Vendor rolls, that means that I can get 3 sharps at Sazens in the same time that it takes me to get 1 sharp at Helms. It was also around this time that I was getting close to the 100 million silver mark to buy another boss gear if it comes up, so I've been getting excited to farm for silver over other materials. The downside of Sazens is that aside from Grunel gear, it drops almost nothing else useful. I get about 15 blackstones and 1 book for scrolls every hour. On the plus side, they do drop Red Nose scrolls, which I accidentally foreshadowed being important last episode. You see, now that I have my Red Nose armor that I bought from the Night Vendor, I'm not after the Red Nose armor anymore. So the chance of it dropping from the scrolls wasn't on my mind at all. But, as fortune would have it, on the first Red Nose scroll, the boss itself drops not only the Red Nose armor, but also a Laverta weapon box. I don't know the odds on something like that happening, but I'm going to go with extremely low. So 2 boss armors in one episode, and they're both the same boss armor. While it would be a bit of a waste to use this red nose armor to repair my current red nose, though the thought did cross my mind, instead I'll be using this armor for some light fail stacking, and once it gets to try, I'll get to do TED attempts with it. With Sazens as my new source for sharps through the Night Vendor, I needed some more Night Vendor rolls. I've already leveled a Kuno off stream, bringing me up to 4 Night Vendor rolls a night, but I decided I may as well level a Warrior as well. When leveling my Kuno, I took my usual leveling route that I do every single time, and can go from 1 to 50 in about an hour. I decided to be a little more efficient with my Warrior and focus on energy while I leveled. Since I've never really learned to play Warrior, this was good practice, and I started to learn the combos pretty quick. While the energy was flowing in fairly fast, the levels were not. It turns out when you outlevel a location and just keep grinding there and don't even kill full packs of mobs because you're hunting specific ones, the levels are really slow. The worst of this came when I got to trolls though. I saw that trolls could get me 4 energy points, and I was 3 away from 150 energy, which would let me roll an additional Night Vendor roll for each level 50. This seemed like the obvious next location. Well, I spent 3 to 4 hours here running from location to location trying to find each troll that I needed. Remind you, I can't read German, which has been a very common issue with this journey. So currently, I don't know what mobs I actually need. I just had to look for the mob that had a name that matched what was in the journal. It works fine for the most part, but it means that I can't use the context of the name to know what I should be looking for. Am I looking for a troll, a barricade, an ox, or a tower? Who really knows? Well, this led to a very long goose chase and the longest stream I've had so far. Generally my streams last about 3.5 hours, but this one lasted 5 hours. I said that I wouldn't end the stream until I got the energy from the trolls, and I gave up at the 5-hour mark with 4 knowledge points still missing. After the stream I did end up looking up all the mobs locations, and I got the last 4 points knocked out in about 30 minutes, bringing me up over the 150 energy mark. Unfortunately, the next day of footage was lost due to a power outage that affected my entire state and some states around me. During that time, I farmed Lake Kaya for more energy. I didn't get it, but I did hit level 50 and then went and farmed some helms. So you're not really missing out on that much. Around this time is where I made a terrible mistake. I was complaining about 2 out of 3 of my boss pieces being red nose armors, and through some interaction that I could not explain, I made the agreement that if the next boss piece to roll on the Night Vendor was a red nose, I would buy it. This would bring me up to having 3 red nose armors, which I really don't need, but the odds of that happening are pretty low. I mean, there are 4 other armors and 32 weapons that could be just as easily rolled. There is absolutely no way that I'm going to roll a red nose next. Well, apparently I angered RNGesus at some point because he decided to stick his slimy little fingers into my spreadsheet and ensure that I rolled a red nose armor. I was technically a few million silver short of being able to buy the armor, but I figured I'd honor the roll and spend my hard-earned 100 million silver on yet another red nose armor. This was the lowest point I've had on this journey, and I think it started to affect the experience as a whole. At this point I've made maybe 230 million silver, and 200 million of it has gone to red nose armors. I make 2 to 6 million silver an hour depending on the location, and I can get a maximum of 5 hards and 2 sharps an hour. I've been grinding for 2 weeks straight, and my gear has not moved at all. I've been stuck in Medaya for over a month now. And I do want to say, I don't think that this is an issue with the game back in the day, but an issue with this server and how the challenge is set up. If I could purchase things off the marketplace, this would be a very different story.
Because that shit's never on the market anyway? Fucking shit.
If I could group up with people and grind in other locations, this would be a very different story.
What the fuck?
If I didn't have to spend 100 blackstones to create a plus 15 reblath, only for it to go plus 15 for me to melt it and start all over again, this would be a very different story.
Fail.
With all of these things trying to push me down, I decided to make a modification to how the goal system works. Currently, every time I reach a milestone, I get an amount of pearls as a reward ranging from 1,000 to 2,000 pearls. This allows me to get outfits, weight, and storage, which is great. The modification to this system is that now every group of milestones that I complete gives me an additional multiplier to drop rates, and I have moved some of the really difficult goals to be stretch goals in their own tier. I'm struggling to make any progress at the moment, and I'm not even at the hard part yet. Crescent rings dropped at about 1 every 10 hours back in the day, and I'm going to need a lot of crescent rings, among many other items. Again, I don't have events or the marketplace as a source for these like I did back in the day. So with that in mind, here are the changes. The new stretch goals are as follows. reach level 61, build a nefarious sailboat, obtain a Tet armor or weapon, and reach 200 contribution points. These are things that I still want to achieve to consider the journey complete, but they are no longer a part of their respective groups. Now, once I get level 60 and a level 56 alt, I will move up to 6x drop rates. A full set of tri-weapons and armor will be 7x drop rates, 200 AP will be 8x drop rates, and so on. It doesn't have to be done in that order, but that's just to give the example. I still won't be reaching these goals for a while, but at least I have that to look forward to as I continue. Though I was starting to lose steam from the long stretch of grinding in the same place with no upgrades and no silver rolling in, I eventually had a feeling that today is the day. Today I will get an upgrade. I jumped into Helms with more energy than I've had for the last 2 weeks and spent about 3 hours there. I ended up with 10 Scarlet Necklaces and 4 Ancient Guardian Seals, which is pretty lucky. Melting these turned into 10 Hards and 6 Sharps, which is more Hards and Sharps than I've seen in a long time. Getting back to Velia for some enhancements, I decided to do some research and development. We all know that the Black Spirit is interconnected with the world of Black Desert and the RNG that flows through it. Every Black Spirit has different preferences and tendencies. Yours may want a house with candles of your enhancement level, your friends may require a sacrifice to a seagull in Velia, and I needed to do some research to figure out what my Black Spirit prefers. The Black Spirit seems very partial to animals, so I took the suggestions from chat and tried a crow on a fence, a few different cats, a rat outside a house, and a dog in a field. The Black Spirit did not seem to take a liking to any of these. While looking for another animal, I found the gold mine. Nothing screams lucky more than a burnt down house. This singular building houses 4 birds, a cat, and a rat, and sometimes even a grass beetle. It can't get better than this. I tried the cat while going for duo, but the cat was a little selfish and didn't want to provide. So, to his arch nemesis I went. The rat was a little skittish, but in the end did decide to bless the enhancement. And as an additional point of research, we learned that my Black Spirit is a little bit shy. He prefers to have his face hidden by the item being enhanced. I think it helps him overcome his performance anxiety. As another point of research, it was at this point that I made another realization. My Black Spirit likes patterns. You'll see more about this in a second. I realized that the weapon enhancements are successful in the burnt down house because weapon stones are the color of fire. By simple reasoning, this means that the Black Spirit will bless any armor enhancements, which use blue stones, in the water. And maybe it's weapon specific because fire, this looks like it's on fire, this is more water. So is there a water cat for armors? Or a water rat? There is a water cat. And a water dog. Okay. Why are there so many animals drowning themselves? With all of this understanding, I swapped to my witch, who had a 48 stack waiting. If the enhancement fails, it will turn into a Tet stack for me, but I have done the math, connected all of the dots, and learned every tick that my Black Spirit has, and I have confirmed that this enhancement cannot fail. With the perfect setting to please the Black Spirit, I parked myself on top of the burnt house with 3 birds in frame to represent the Tri enhancement, and put in my most valuable weapon thus far, my Duo Aloria Adds Farah, that have just completely shut the internet down. There are 3 crows here? 4? There are 4 crows on this burnt house. If there were 3, I was going to say that's perfect for Tri, but there's 4, so maybe it's not quite. But there are 3 in this shot. There is a crow here, down there, and over there. So this is like the perfect spot to get a Tri. This is the Tri spot with 3 crows. Easy. Let's go. All right. That is such a huge upgrade. Holy cow. That is 17 AP. 17. And that, my friends, is why you don't fire your research and development team when profits slow down. The research paid off, and I managed to gain 17 AP from a single enhancement. I'd like to see you do that with a sovereign weapon. When you're on a roll, there's no reason to slow down. Having figured out the Black Spirit, I took my Grunal armor to the ocean, where the cats and dogs go to drown themselves at the sight of my ranger. Though the cats and dogs left me, they were just a distraction from the superior bringers of fortune, crabs. I parked myself with 2 crabs in frame and threw my Grunal boots into the enhancement window. Now, my Black Spirit is reasonable. He doesn't think that it's fair for me to get multiple upgrades back to back, so he fails my first duo attempt. I can't really argue with that. Fair is fair. Having paid my debt, though, he succeeds my next attempt. While looking for a triple crab for the Tri enhancement, a majestic basket crab caught my eye. Much like the Black Spirit, the crab was a little shy and jumped off the basket as I approached. I think this is the type of crab that I needed, though. The Black Spirit and crab had something to bond over, and this gave the Black Spirit the confidence to give me yet another try. There's a lot of crabs in the background. I don't see how this could fail. Alright. Come on, Black Spirit. Give me my try. There's a lot of crabs. Yeah! Alright, Rymar, you're rich. Now, out of tri-stacks and mostly out of stones, I decided to give the Black Spirit a break for the rest of the day. You did well, little buddy. With all of these upgrades, I now sit at 162 AP and 222 DP. I know I told you this would be the desert episode, but it turns out I lied. I do that a lot, don't I? Next episode, we venture into the desert for sure. I'm tired of the dry dirt of Medaya, and I'm ready for the dry sands of Valencia.